Okay, so we'll get started. So as I said, welcome to the traineeship pre-departure session. I hope you're all looking forward to your traineeship next semester. So here we will walk you through what the required paperwork is. And there is quite a bit of it, but it's all very straightforward. And it's very purposeful. It's meant so you can get your grant, as well as to ensure that you will get credit for your time during your traineeship. Two things I'm sure you both want, grant, credit. So we'll walk you through the process, as well as some of the deadlines that are present. And then we'll do a bit of information just on readiness. So that will be today's, and then as I said, we'll open up a Q&A then at the end. So just a quick introduction to who we are. So I'm Kristen, I'm the Erasmus executive here, and then over here we have Jody. She's our outgoing guru, so you'll be getting a lot of emails from her helping to process your paperwork. And this is where we are on campus in Global Galway. So these are our contact information should you have any questions or need to stop by. So we'll do a brief two slide intro to what is Erasmus. So Erasmus is the European Community Action Scheme for the mobility of university students. So it's the European Union's flagship mobility program in both education and training, which is what you guys are undertaking. And it's really meant to enhance the European dimension of higher education through student and staff mobility. So the first flagship area was then mobility, but it's really developed to now include inclusion and diversity, digital mobility, as well as sustainability. And the University of Galway has been involved with Erasmus since its start. So you guys will be going under Erasmus traineeships. So you might hear them called different things. The paperwork will always say traineeships, but it's also known as a work placement, also known as an internship. At the end of the day, an Erasmus traineeship is a work experience, which is very different from the study visits. So during your Erasmus traineeship, you're not to be taking any courses, you're not to be studying, not to be taking any exams. It's based fully around your immersive work experience. And so all students are eligible regardless of nationality. But the real stickler here is that the traineeships must be formally recognized by the University of Galway. And some of the paperwork we're going to explain is how that's going to take place. So I'm sure I don't have to sell Erasmus for you, but I hope you're all looking forward to it. You will create a lot of great memories, make a lot of international friends, really get to improve your language skills or learn a new language, get immersed in other cultures, learn something new about the world, about yourself, and grow as a person and gain a lot of invaluable skills, things like resilience, as well as a lot of soft skills that you will need later on in the workforce. And then additionally, there's a lot of academic benefits. There is quite a bit of data that those that undergo Erasmus have enhanced employability later on. So all in all, it's a win-win. And then, at the end of the day, still traveling is one of the most intense modes of learning. Stepping out and going somewhere else, you'll learn a lot, as well as a lot about yourself. So now we will walk you through all of the documentation that is required. So the first thing I want to reference is we do have a traineeship handbook. This is kind of your end all be all first point of reference for all things involved in this documentation. So Jody has this wonderful resource. It outlines everything that's required, as well as goes into quite a bit of details of how to fill out the various forms, what different sections of these forms mean. So this should really be a key reference. You should look through it. And then as you're going through things, as questions pop up, this is a great resource to look at first in order to get the information that you need. So this is on our website, as well as it'll be in emails sent to you, but it is linked on our outgoing student Erasmus website. So now what are the documents that you will need to fill out? So there's a few things done beforehand and then a few things done during and after your mobility. So before you begin your mobility period, you will need to complete a grant application, which is what it sounds like. It's an application in order to get the grant. You will need to complete your learning agreement, which is your academic contract. It's outlining what you're going to be doing and how it's going to be recognized by the University of Galway, particularly how you will get credit for it that will allow you to advance in your degree. And then you'll also need to fill out your grant agreement, which is your financial contract with us, outlining what your Erasmus grant is and what the terms and conditions of the grant are. And during and after your mobility, you will have to fill out grant acknowledgements forms. These are very simple. You're just acknowledging that the grant entered your bank account. This is so we can ensure it gets to you. You'll have to have a traineeship certificate certifying what you did, and how will have to be signed and dated and completely filled out. We'll go through that. You also need to complete an EU survey. This is from the Commission outlining how your experience was. And then your final grant acknowledgement form. When all of your paper is in, we'll send you your last payment and we'll have to send that in. So all of this paperwork does hold a purpose, as we stated, and it's all put out by the commission. So these are things that have to be done. So when we outline different rules and regulations and deadlines, these are strict. They do have to be followed. These do get checked. And if anything isn't complete, you might not be able to go, or you can go but won't receive your grant. So do make sure that you try to get these all in a very timely manner. We really can't accept anything. We can't accept anything late. So do make sure you get things started as soon as possible, and make sure you get them through to completion. But we will walk you through each one now. So what are the things that you need done before your mobility? The first is your grant application form. So this will be an email link that Jody will send you this week. And this is your application in order to receive your mobility grant. It's how we gather all of your required information and help to form our databases. So the deadline for this is going to be the 15th of November at 5 p.m. So do make a note of that. We can't accept this late. So do make sure that you sit down before this deadline and try and get it done. It's quite straightforward information, and we do suggest you do this a bit early because it's always at the last minute when your computer decides it needs to restart. And if you are late, as I said, you won't be able to get the Erasmus grant. So do make sure you note this date and get it done in advance. The other documentation is your learning agreement. As I said, this is your academic contract to ensure you receive credit and can continue on in your University of Galway degree when you come back. And finally, your grant agreement, the contract outlining the grant. So a few kind of disclaimers before we dive into each one about all of the documentation. This information is how we create our database, how we create our mailing list. And so please make sure that everything is accurate, that you spell names correctly, you put numbers in, particularly bank details, properly, punctuate where necessary. If you spell your name wrong on this, well, then your name is spelled wrong. If you don't put in a bank detail correctly, you're not going to receive the grant payments. So while it all is all very straightforward information, just make sure you go slow enough and do a double check to make sure it's quite difficult to go back and change them. You will then have to also ensure that every single document as part of this does have to be signed. Digital signatures are not valid. The EU Commission and our higher education authority does not accept you, say, choosing a font and typing it. So do make sure that everything is signed. You can take, say, a picture of a signature and copy it in, but do make sure you do not use fonts or font-generated signatures. They would not be valid, and we won't be able to accept any documentation as complete then. So those are a few kind of general disclaimers, and now we'll dive into each one. So the Erasmus grant application, as I said, it's very straightforward. It's simple things about you, your address, your birthday, your bank details. So some things to just consider as you're moving forward. Use your name as it appears on your passport. One name is sufficient unless you usually use two. Essentially, just be consistent. Just, whether you use English or Irish name, one name or two names, just pick one and stick with it. It'll be easier for our database to follow. You will be asked to provide an address, use a permanent address for this. You will also be asked to use a calendar to select dates. So this is the start and end of your traineeship period. We know that you might not have an exact date at this time, but hopefully you've been in contact with your employer, with your host who you're going to, and have kind of a general idea of when you're starting and when you're ending. So these dates will also be on your traineeship learning agreement. It'll be on other documentation as well. So while we know that this is likely going to change, make sure you gather kind of your estimated start and end dates before you start this as part of this grant application. So gather this information, consult your employer, consult your host, and also make sure you have your bank information before you start. But it's all very straightforward. So when Jody sends this, open it up, fill out this information. Once you submit it, it'll be submitted by your University of Galway Office 365 account. Once you submit, you'll immediately receive a link, an email with links that looks like this. Check your spam folder if that doesn't come through. This is essentially confirming receipt and providing some additional information. You'll see the handbook will be linked in there, so it's something great that you can immediately start looking at. And then in due time, we'll follow up with the rest of the paperwork. So do make sure, again, of this deadline, the 15th of November, by 5 p.m. to have this grant application submitted. As I said, it's very straightforward. Just make sure you have your dates, basic information, and your bank details ready to go, and have it submitted ahead of time so that we can continue to process your paperwork. As part of this grant application, you will be asked to click a box that basically says you agree to the collection, use, and storage of your data. So we do follow the university's data protection policy, which is linked here. Just note that it's us, myself and Jody, that are really seeing this information. It's saved in its own separate drive that other people do not have access to. So we do keep it very safe and secure. We don't ask for anything that's not necessary in order to process your mobility and your grant. But if you have any questions about the data or data storage, feel free to reach out to us. So what happens if you miss the deadline? Well, there's nothing we can do. So if you miss the deadline, unfortunately, you cannot be considered for an Erasmus grant. You can be approved to go as a zero grant student, which is as it sounds. You can still attend, but you don't receive any grant. And this is a very strict deadline, so we can't accept any late applications. So do make sure that once you get this link, you process your grant application and be a reminder of the 15th of November deadline. So you've done that. Now we move on to the rest of your paperwork. So one that we have is your learning agreement. The learning agreement is your academic contract. We'll send you a link, but you can also download it from the website. This is still in a Word document form, so you will need to download it, fill it out, and email it back and forth for signatures. So this is going to be outlining basically what you're doing, different skills you are going to gain, and it does need to be signed off by two academic advisors or supervisors, depending on where you're going. So you will need to be signed by your academic coordinator here at the University of Galway, as well as somebody at your host organization. This is likely somebody who's going to be acting as a supervisor and will be overseeing your traineeship period. So for this to be completed, all sections need to be complete as well as all signatures. So kind of two supervisors and yourself. For any questions on filling this out, your Galway academic coordinator is your go-to. They can help you to fill this out as well as to help you identify the correct academic coordinator, the correct supervisor, etc. at your host organization. There's one section that's for changes. You don't need to look at that during this first round. If any changes come up, then you would note those in that section and have to re-get signatures. So here's a just a screenshot of what the learning agreement looks like. So we do suggest there's a whole section in the outgoing traineeship handbook about how to fill this out. Jody has also made a video going through these sections as well. These two are both great resources to help you fill out, really going what needs to go into each section, what type of detail needs to be in each section in order for it to be considered complete. So you do see it has some basic information about the institutions as well as the planned period of mobility. These are the dates and really what you will be doing. So detailed program of the traineeship period, knowledge and skills that you will be gaining, as well as a monitoring and evaluation plan. So these need to be sufficiently filled out as well as signed before the start of your mobility. If they're not signed before your start, you can't receive your grant. So Your deadline to complete this is by the 30th of November. This is so that after this, we then have to also process your grant agreements. So there's another, so we do need time in order to move these things along. As some of you will be going quite early in January. So please work on your learning agreement. Contact your academic coordinator if you have questions, and send this into us by November 30th. We will then get back to you if anything else needs to be added to it or changed. But do make sure you send us a completed version. Look at the handbook, look at the video to really get a sense of what type of details are needed. And please have all of the signatures done. And again, if we don't get this in, you also can't receive your grant. So this is a critical piece of the paperwork. I mean, it should be something that you want filled out as well. As you see, it outlines what you're going to be doing on the traineeship. Sure, nobody wants to show up and just la-di-da-di-da, not know what to do. So this is really setting it up so that when you show up at your traineeship, you already have a leg up. You already have a sense of what you're going to be doing, how your supervisor is going to monitor and evaluate you. So it's going to make it easier for you to jump into what you're doing as well. This will force you to be in contact with your supervisor there ahead of time as well. So it's also setting you up for success in the limited time that you have in this traineeship. So it is a very important for both your experience, but also you all want to receive your grant. So do make note of this deadline as well.
Yeah, and if I could just jump in really quickly, there are groups of you where this particular document will be filled in by either your academic coordinator here or the mobility coordinator. I know if you're one of the medical students who are going abroad in semester two on placements, Aoife Shevlin will be in contact with you, and I know she's involved in helping you to fill this out. If you're one of the biotech students and Stephen Ray is your academic coordinator, I think Stephen or maybe Nora Buckby, I think is the admin right now for the biotech students. They'll be doing a lot of the work with the learning agreement. So if you're a biotech student, please speak to Stephen or Nora about this document. And if you're a medical student, speak to Aoife. Any other student, please contact me. I think I will have emailed you a Word document, a blank copy of this document already, so you should all have a copy. If I could just really stress, please watch the YouTube video that you all have received a link for. It'll take you through this step by step, line by line, show you how to fill it out. It's very clear, it's very simple, but a lot of students will stumble on this document because they'll think, oh, well, I don't need to fill this part, or I'm not too sure, but every piece of information that the document asks for must be filled in. You need to know, like with the grant application form, your dates can be approximate, but your start date and end date here in the learning agreement really does need to be exact. You need to know what you're doing. You need to know how you're going to be evaluated. So if you do have any questions, please ask me. But if you're a biotech student, Stephen and Nora will be doing this. And if you're a medical student, please speak to Aoife. But any other questions, you can email me. There's a question just now about where we find the video. There's a link to the video in the emails I sent you about this pre-departure session. There's also a link on our website to the video. Okay. And if you still can't find it, send me an email and I'll send you the link again.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we try and make it as painless as possible there. So Jody has prepared all great documentation, so we definitely suggest to look at it. We really want to help you and give you the resources you need to get this done right the first time, so that there's kind of a lot of less back and forth and redoing things. So this is kind of your one of your key documents there. So now that the learning agreement, something we will then send to you after that is your Erasmus grant agreement. So this is the financial contract between us and you, and this is going to outline kind of the terms and conditions. So this grant is, it is a contract. So there are terms and conditions. So we do suggest that you read through the requirements of this grant agreement. So this will include things like your bank details, another place to check that they are all correct. You will also have to insert insurance details here. So private travel insurance is a requirement of the Erasmus program. We'll go into a bit more details about this, but you have to put insurance details in for this to be completed. Once this is sent to you, read through it, make sure everything's correct. sign, date, and return it to the Alcoa and Erasmus webpage. We do say do this. This should be done also before the start of your mobility. If it's returned after, we won't be able to process your grant. So do make sure that this is also done fully filled out, signed, and dated before the start of your mobility. So I mentioned insurance as part of the grant agreement. So private travel insurance is mandatory. This is set out by the commission. So you have to have private travel insurance. So we are not insurance brokers. We can't tell you if your policy covers enough or even tell you what type of insurance you should have. But we do have details on our website that's outlined below about what you should be looking for in an insurance. What are some of the requirements and giving you ideas of providers. It's then up to you to look for and pick what would be suitable for you. If you already have an existing health policy, you might already be fully covered, so you can look at those. But we do have a full list of things that should be covered, everything from medical expenses to lost or stolen possessions on our website. So we do suggest you look there, do some research, find what's suitable for you. As I said, this is mandatory. You will have to put in the name of the insurance or the name of the insurance company as well as the details. So this could be the number, the policy number. And this is for your protection. It's better to have it and not use it than to need it and not have it. And unfortunately, things do happen. So this is a very important thing to have. Also, you must hold a European health insurance card if eligible. So all EU citizens and EU residents are eligible. So you can go to the EHIC website and that will walk you through how to apply for it. And this can help you get health care abroad. So now probably what you all want to know, the Erasmus grant, how much and when. So these rates are set by the commission. So this is 535 per month, and a month is considered a 30-day period for this set of countries, and then it's 480 per month for all other countries. This is why your dates are very important. So we will take your dates and basically calculate out how many 30-day periods are within your set of dates. We will then multiply that by your monthly rate to come up with your Erasmus grant total. There is an additional 250 per month top up for financially disadvantaged students based on SISI or students SUSI maintenance grant eligibility. This is something you will be asked during your grant application, but there's no additional paperwork that needs to be filled out. The fees office will send us this information. So things such as the top ups will be included in later grant payments as we get the information from fees. In addition to the monthly rate, there's a one-time travel contribution for us from the University of Galway. This is typically 309 euros. So this is on top of, say, your 535 times 3 months. It'll just be a one-time plus 309, and that's meant to help with travel costs. So when do you receive your grant payments? So you're going to receive what we're calling the main grant installment at the beginning of the traineeship period. So this is once all of your paperwork is in, completed, signed. You arrive, you start, we do a check, everything's signed and in, we can then send you your first payment. And this is 80% of your total that we calculated based on your dates. This typically comes within the first 4 to 6 weeks. It could be 2 months, depending on how long processing takes. So we do say make sure you go and start with enough financing to help you, pay your first month or two of rent, as well as kind of groceries, living expenses. We do try and get these out as quickly as possible, but it does have to go through a series of approvals and two accounts, etc. So we will send this first kind of 80% at the beginning of your traineeship period. You will then get the last 20% at the end of the traineeship period, provided all your final paperwork has been submitted. There are additional grants. There is a special needs grant available to assist with any additional cost based on disabilities that would be involved in completing your Erasmus period abroad. So this can include things that are necessary for you to go. So it could be something like a service animal, different types of assistive technology that you couldn't complete this period without paying for. So if you think you might be eligible for this or have any questions about it, uh, reach out to us with any inquiries. We can walk you through the application process for this, what would be required, and then you can kind of make a decision as to whether you think you would be eligible for this, and then we would help you through the process. We also suggest that any students who are registered with a disability of service here inform their disability officer. They might be able to help you pinpoint different supports that you can utilize during your time abroad. So say if you're going to a university, you can also inform the disability office there. This will not at all hinder your ability to go. It's just to make sure that you have the supports that you need in order to succeed during your traineeship period. If you're going to an organization, do some research. There might be somebody you can reach out to. And again, none of this will impact your ability. This is just our suggestion, as they will be able to really help you and make sure you are supported. But if you do have any questions about any of this, you can definitely reach out to us at any time, and we'll kind of walk you through different processes and procedures. So Erasmus grant, breach of contract. So I said this is a financial contract that you will be signing. So if the terms and conditions are not met, that could mean a repayment of the grant. So kind of the most common breaches of contracts occur if you fail to complete the traineeship period or you fail to complete the minimum of 2 months abroad. So say if you return home without completing the traineeship period, but have completed over 2 months, you'll be asked to return a portion of the grant. We will calculate out what your payment is for say those 2 months, and you'll have to repay back anything that's above that. If you fail to complete kind of any of the traineeship period, that could have other implications as well. Could be a full grant repayment, as well as implications for your fees and final degree here. So we are just noting, we understand things happen. So if you do change your dates for any reason, because something happens, or because you were given the opportunity to extend by a couple of weeks, please let us know as soon as possible. We can only make changes if we know. We unfortunately cannot read minds. We don't know what's happening unless you tell us. So do tell us as soon as possible. We'll be able to issue updated information, be able to inform you about what these changes might mean for your grant, for your time, anything. But we can only do this if we know. So if for any reason you need to come home, something has come up, or something good has happened and you're extending, let us know, because this is how we can help you, and we can walk you through what happens. Say if you come home, don't tell us, we find out later, there's not much we can do, and you're likely just going to have to repay back the whole grant. But the sooner we know about something, the sooner we can work with you to find a solution. So anything comes up, we cannot stress this enough, let us know. Okay, so those are the three main documentations before your mobility: your grant application, your grant agreement, and your traineeship learning agreement. Okay, you go on your traineeship, you have a great time, you learn a lot. Now what do you have to do? Again, handbook, key reference for the process you could look at throughout to remind yourself what's required. So you're going to need your traineeship certificate. This is the evaluation of your traineeship and the certification of the dates of your mobility. You'll need a grant acknowledgement form. This is something we will send you. It's very simple. It says, this is my name. I've received this much money on this date, and you're going to sign it. This is so we can make sure that you got the money, and it's not sitting in the ether somewhere. So this is a requirement, as well as the Erasmus survey. This is from the EU Commission. It is also a requirement of the program. All right, so the traineeship certificate. This is to be completed before you leave the host organization. So it should be filled in at the very end of your traineeship period. And there's a section called Evaluation of the Trainee. This is not for you to fill out. This is for the host to fill out. You filled out an evaluation and monitoring plan in the beginning. They're now utilizing that, and they're going to fill out the evaluation of the trainee. So again, this is not you, this is the host that is filling this out. They will fill out your evaluation. They must then sign, stamp, and date it. Those are all very important. Not all three are there. It's not considered complete. So do make sure that they sign, stamp, and date. You don't want to come home and then find out it's not complete. We can't process your final paperwork. Then you got to figure out how to go and get it stamped. So do make sure that this gets fully filled out, signed, dated, and stamped. So this is to receive both credit and your final payment. So at the very end of your period, have your host fill this out, have them sign, stamp, and date, and then submit it to us. We will then work to process kind of your final payment and anything with credit. This is what it looks like. Is going to be kind of at the end of your learning and the end of your LA, so your learning agreement. As I said, it's very bold at the top section to be completed after. This will be filled out by the host. As you see, they're gonna what you did, what you learned, and the kind of evaluation. So they'll fill out the evaluation, but do see at the end it says date, name, and signature. And stamp. So make sure those are completed before you come home. So some additional final paperwork. So we just mentioned that the traineeship cert have this completed just as you are finishing. Don't send it in advance. This should be at the very end of it, but do make sure it's completed before you get on the plane to come home. You need the grant acknowledgement form for each grant installment. So you will be getting two of your grant installments, so make sure they're fully filled out for each one. And then you need to fill out the student survey. So this comes from the commission. Sometimes it goes to spam. So do make sure when we're telling you this is coming, check your spam email. Once all of this is complete, we will send you your final grant installment. And then you'll still have to send this grant acknowledgement form after, but we won't send the final grant installment until the cert, your first grant acknowledgement form, and student survey are complete. So kind of some items for your to-do list. For now, you're going to be working on your grant application, following your learning agreement first and then your grant agreement, but you're going to be working on all three of these before the start of your mobility. Do arrange to have a European health insurance card as well as travel insurance. Make sure that your passport is valid for at least 6 months after your final return trip. Um, I wish I could grant passports, but I can't. So if you can't come home or get stuck somewhere, we've seen it happen. So do make sure that your passport is valid for at least 6 months after your final return trip. Consider looking into an international student card. You can get discounts, different events you can go on. So that's something you can consider getting. We definitely suggest researching accommodation early and looking. Sometimes a host can help you, but do some research early on as to where you can live. Be wary of any type of scams or anything that comes up, and kind of make sure you do the proper research to find a suitable accommodation. We do have a Facebook, if anybody's still on Facebook, to join. We will update things there as well. And a very important thing, this is your to-do list throughout your entire mobility period. Continue to check your University of Galway email address. This is how we will communicate to you, and this is how you will communicate back to us. And so if, say, we send you something isn't complete, but you've gotten on the plane and went abroad, and we send you an email 10 times saying this isn't complete, eventually we're going to have to say, well, we can't give you the grant because this isn't complete. And we don't want that to be just because you weren't checking your email. And do make sure that if you lose access to it, so say you lose your MFA access, you lose your phone, that you contact ISS right away to make sure that you can continue to get access to your University of Galway email. That's how we will be sending you information. And we just because you didn't see it doesn't mean it's something that we then can't process. So now a question of will you need a visa for your traineeship? So with everything else, I don't have power over visas. I really wish I did, but we can't grant visas, we can't expedite visas, and we can't even tell you if you need a visa or not, because it's based on individual personal circumstances, citizenships, and residencies. But definitely, if you're not an EU citizen, you may need a visa for your destination. So we definitely suggest you do your research, do a Google search, check with your destination's country embassy here in Ireland to get their advice. They might tell you how to apply for a visa. And then do this early because sometimes visas can take quite a long time to process. And just note that if you are a UK citizen who only holds a British passport, this will apply to you as well. Um, as I said, we can't do much when it comes to a visa processing or visa application. But if you do need a letter stating you are an Erasmus student, that's something we can help with. But if you do think you're going to need a visa or you're not sure, research it as soon as possible and start to get your application in because there's not much we're going to be able to do if you can't get on a plane and go. So it's just a disclaimer to do a little bit of research to see if you need one. So here's a summary of the paperwork that's required. So before you go, you're going to need your grant application form, your learning agreement, and your grant agreement. And this kind of all happens sequentially, and that's why there's deadlines for each. So November 15th and then November 30th for the learning agreement. And that's so that we have enough time to then process your grant agreement, which will need to be signed before you go. And then if these are not signed before you unfortunately won't get your grant. So that's why we're setting kind of these deadlines to make sure it all gets processed on time. During and after, you'll need to submit the grant acknowledgement form saying I've received the funding. You'll have to submit your traineeship certificate that is signed, dated, and stamped, as well as your student survey. And then kind of just be prepared in general. Research will where you'll be living. There's a lot of great resources out there, whether it be tourism websites. We do have reports online from former students, travel books. There's an Erasmus Plus app. You can read about culture of where you're going on the website. We also suggest that you consult the Department of Foreign Affairs website. They will have advice on country-specific local laws that you should be aware of, any type of safety issues that are arising. We do suggest that you register your destination's location with the Department of Foreign Affairs. This is again something we hope that you will not need, but it's better that they know where you are in case something happens, as then assistance can be provided sooner. And things do happen. I mean, even just last year there was widespread power outages. Some students needed help, but there are other cases where something serious does happen, and students need assistance. So this is something like insurance where we hope you won't need it, but it's better to have it. This isn't a requirement, but we do suggest that you register. We also say that you should note the contact details for the Irish Embassy or consulate within your host country of where you are going. And this is just a reminder of the deadlines. If these are not received on time, you won't be getting your Erasmus grant. And these are strict deadlines. We can't change them. So do make a note of these two dates. And as I said, it's always at last minute that your computer needs to restart. So try and get them done even earlier ahead of those so that we don't run into any issues. So I'll just do a little bit of kind of readiness of both academic and a little bit of emotional just to kind of get you prepared. And then we'll open it up to questions. So the first thing is a little bit of academic readiness. So it might sound cheesy, but it's true. You are an ambassador during this time for your country and for your university. And so how you behave and how you act will reflect the larger reputation of the University of Galway and its degrees. And so I hope we were all proud to be getting a University of Galway degree and that you will be utilizing this degree in order to go to grad school, in order to get the job that you want to get, in order to move where you want to move. And I'm sure you want the degree to hold a lot of weight so that you can get where you want to go. And so this means that everything from how you and other students behave do reflect back on this. So if there's, say, a set of Erasmus students abroad that do not have a good attitude and are not behaving in a professional manner, all of kind of those hosts are going to recognize that. And in their head, they're going to be saying, oh, University of Galway. They're not going to see the degree in the same way. And then what if that person is later on a hiring panel for you? The world's smaller than you think at times. So we do say that nobody expects you to be perfect. This is a traineeship, you're learning. But things like being professional and having a good attitude really can go a long way. So while nobody's expecting you not to know, you're not going to know everything. They're going to expect you to ask questions, be confused, not know how things work, but just to have kind of a good attitude and behavior when you show up. And really, just to be aware, things like work styles might be very different than here in Ireland. There might be very different rules of engagement of how you work with the supervisor, how you work with coworkers. So just be aware of this as you go in. Read up on some information, ask questions they're not sure of. There might be very different setups, a very different healthcare culture. So that's just for you to be aware of and go in with an open mind. So we really just say ensure that you're utilizing professionalism at all times. You're realizing proper email etiquette. Don't email, hey, you, I don't know what's happening. We've seen it. Things like pay attention to kind of any rules, ask questions. Overall, just be respectful and have academic integrity. And then just a little bit on emotional readiness. So you all are going to experience culture shock. At its definition, culture shock is the impact of moving from a familiar culture to something that's unfamiliar. And there's a lot of things that can cause this. It's just a shock to be in a totally new environment where everything looks and functions differently than what you're used to. You'll be learning a new culture, new ways. You'll be separated from people you're used to being around. You won't have your familiar routine, and just everything's going to be new. You might be having to try totally different foods, learning a new language, adjusting to a completely different climate. And so this is a lot to take in. So we're just going to highlight to you that, it can happen at any time, and it's something that's going to be very common and should pass. And so just know it's going to happen. You're not alone. I always give an example. You might see from my accent that I'm not from Galway. So when I first moved here, I had the biggest culture shock, and I went down the spiral for about a minute, and then it did pass. But it was something very small. I was in a meeting with colleagues, eating a snack, and then I had my kind of bar, and I needed to throw away the wrapper. And so I asked, "Where is the garbage can?" And everybody started laughing, and it wasn't with any malice. It was just the word was weird. It should have been bin, not garbage can. But it's when everybody laughed when, like, I said the word differently. I was like, oh, do I belong here? What am I doing? And so it was just this quick spiral. Again, it was something really small. But it's common. It passed, and now I'm fine. So it's just to let you know that it's likely going to happen. Contact friends, bring something familiar, find something familiar. But if any problems do arise where it's becoming a lot, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We can definitely provide any type of supports, and you can still utilize University of Galway counseling service from abroad. So we definitely suggest to reach out to them should the culture shock become too much. So the last thing is we have asked students returning what kind of their key challenges are and their key advice. So the key challenges students have faced is adjusting to living alone, having to eat different food, as well as adapting to the expenses of living abroad. So kind of then your key advice from returning students. The first is to budget. As I said, you're going to receive about 80% upfront. Well, about 2 months in. So you do need to make sure you budget that. The other key advice is try the food. Explore around. You're there for a work experience, but Erasmus is also a cultural experience. So do some exploring, and at the end of the day, enjoy. So we hope that you have a wonderful time. And so I will now kind of stop any recording and we can answer any questions.